Hello and welcome to this video. So this video is about WSL or Windows Subsystem for Linux. So we will talk about the consequences which can happen because of WSL later. First we will see what it is, how to install, how to use it. So what you can do with the WSL is you can run Linux inside Windows. Okay. So if you read this documentation, it says Windows subsystem for Linux lets developers run a GNU Linux environment. So how you get started with this is first you need to enable virtualization in your UEFI or BIOS. Once you have installed, once you have enabled virtualization, you can go to command prompt and say WSL -- install. Now the prerequisite is that you should have Windows 10 version 2004 or higher, that is build 19041 and higher, or Windows 11 to use WSL. Now WSL has two versions, WSL 1 and 2. 1 is not that useful, but 2 is very good. So we will look at WSL 2. So now once we have WSL installed, I already have installed, you can see that what Linux distributions are available. So we have got Alma Linux 8 and 9 and Kitten 10, Debian, we have Fedora Linux 42, we have SUSE Linux Enterprise 15, Service Pack 6 and 5, Ubuntu 24.04, 18, 20 and 22, Oracle Linux 7, 8 and 9, Kali Linux, Arch Linux. So I have, what you have to do is WSL -- install, and you copy the name here and paste it. Okay, it did not update it. Hang on. Let me change colors of this because it was not visible. Appearance. We will put Tango Dark. Okay. So this. All right. So we say WSL -- install Arch Linux. It will install. I have already installed it. So once you have installed, you can use it like WSL -D for distribution and say Arch Linux. Once you use it, once you run this, it should bring up WSL and it can log me in. So I'm logged in. You see, we have Arch Linux running in. Now you can see I have 40 GB RAM in the system, out of which 18 GB is given to Arch Linux, and I have top running, bash running, and other things, systemd and all. It consumes 613 MB RAM. Now one of the downsides of WSL is that if you see the task manager, one of the problems which you will have is the memory requirement, because it is running both Windows and Linux. Right now I'm not running much. I have Firefox running with 1 tab and Terminal with 1 tab, OBS Studio and this task manager, and in system tray I have Zoom and Steam, antivirus, so not a lot of stuff, but still it is consuming 11.5 GB RAM. Usually if you run Linux full-blown Windows environment, say for example KDE would consume maybe 5-6 GB RAM. So the downside of running WSL inside Windows is the memory. So if your computer has low amount of RAM, then it is best to run Linux natively. But if you have got plenty of RAM, you can run WSL. Now, why should you consider running WSL is that you don't want to dual boot. That is one thing. Second thing is you don't know how to install Linux. So WSL makes it trivial to install Linux. Linux installation can be quite tricky, particularly if you do not understand the partitioning part of it. The third thing could be that you just want to play with Linux. You are not serious into Linux. Now I have around 25 years of experience with Linux operating system. I've run lots of systems, starting with Red Hat 5 back in the days when it did not have enterprise offering. Then I switched to Debian, then Ubuntu. I ran Ubuntu for a long time, then Linux Mint. Then I switched to Manjaro, and I right now I have a Manjaro install. But so that's the summary of what I've done with Linux of 25 years of usage. But now I find that WSL2 is quite good, and since I play lots of games as well, so I like WSL because I can stay inside Windows and do not go through the reboot process to work and play. So WSL is good for me. Now for development, what you can do is you can have Visual Studio Code, and it has a WSL what do you call plugin to work on WSL files. So if you want to see the files of WSL on Windows, you can say WSL dollar, and then it will take you to Arch Linux, and you have your files of Linux here. So for example, let's say your user would be home shiv for me. So you can open any folder by following this path in Visual Studio Code, and it will activate the WSL mode of Visual Studio Code. Now there are certain things which you need to run is the documentation. If you look at Microsoft documentation, it tells you best practices, VS Code, Git, databases, Docker containers, and other things, how to run GUI applications, Node.js and all. There's a how to of import any Linux distribution. So what you can do is you can get the Docker image of any Linux distribution, and then you can export it to a tar file like this. And once you can you have the tar file, you can import it in WSL with this command. Okay, so in this command, this is your OS name, this is the location where you want to put WSL, and this is the tar file exported from Docker. So let's increase the font a bit. Now, one of the things which you should do with WSL is you should not keep it in C drive. By default, the installation will be in C drive. So I have moved my installation into E drive. So the commands to do is WSL manage minus Arch Linux, the distribution name, and then you say move ecolon. Now do not forget to add backslash here, otherwise your path will be wrong. So that is the part of movement. Now if you want to see, you can run some GUI programs also. So to run GUI programs, what you have to do is you go to your home folder, and then go to your users, and go to you create a WSL config file, and once you have created this file, there is no extension of this file, you can say WSL2 and GUI applications is equal to true. Once you have done that, you can run GUI programs. I'll show you. So you see Emacs comes up, and this is from Linux. As you can see, the performance is slightly slower, but it is not noticeable whatsoever. Now we come to the consequences of what WSL can happen. Okay. Now one of the things which has happened in past is that a small percentage of Windows users, particularly those who are developers, switch to Linux. Lots of people move to Mac OS for development. Now with this WSL, those Linux users don't need to use Linux desktop. So for Microsoft, it is not important that the users use Windows itself. They don't mind people using WSL as long as it is inside Windows. So for Microsoft, the sales of Windows is what they care about. What it means for Linux is that the desktop may die. The desktop OS may die because Linux user may start using WSL. But as such, it is a win for Linux also, because now more and more users have a reason to run Linux in WSL because it is much easier. So it may be actually beneficial for Linux as well. I don't know, only time will tell that what happens with WSL and the future of Linux on desktop. On server side, there is no question. Linux has won the server side market. The question is, what will happen on desktop? So in desktop, I don't know. It would be actually foolish to try to predict the future, but it is good for both Linux as well as for Windows users. The reason is now Windows users can play with Linux, while Linux users can, or I would say that prospective Linux users can experiment with WSL to see how command prompt works, get used to commands, and do more with Linux. So it's a 50-50 kind of situation that this solution benefits both. One place where WSL will not be beneficial is if you are using latest features of Linux kernel. For example, the if you look at the kernel version of Linux, so this is 6.687, but if you run Arch Linux as such, then you will see that the Linux kernel is 6.13 right now. Now it can lag quite a bit. So if you are working on certain features which depend on latest version of Linux kernel, then it is not very useful. The second reason, as I said earlier, is it's intensive on memory. Now you can allocate more memory, you can Google for that, but you need a lot of RAM to run this, because even when you are running almost nothing, it is consuming 12 GB RAM. So that is something which is concerning. Okay, you need a solid system to run WSL. And if you want to learn more about WSL, then you can read through the tutorials, concept, and how-tos. I won't go into details of that because it will be impossible to cover this in one video. And I hope that if you read it yourself, it will be better. So I think I'll end this video here with the note that hopefully I'll pray that it benefits Linux, because there is no doubt that Linux is a far superior operating system compared to Windows. There is absolutely no doubt about that. The only problem with Linux is that when it comes to command line, an average user has problems. Developers may not have problems, but average user will have problems with the command line of Linux. So there is no doubt about that. But let's wait and watch what happens to Linux on desktop. Maybe it will die, or maybe it will bloom. I don't know. So let's see what happens in maybe 5-10 years, and then we will see. But definitely it's a good thing. WSL is a good thing. There is no doubt about that, particularly for users like me who can manage command line. So with that note, I will end this video, and I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and in future I will try to keep making such videos. So don't forget to subscribe, and happy programming. Thanks a lot for watching.